started, I'm just going to ask each of you guys, and I'll start with you, Tim, to give us the 20-second elevator pitch on what you guys do on 24.
Yeah, thanks. So On24 is a webinar marketing technology that's recently expanded out to the Asia Pacific market. We pride ourselves on engagement-driven marketing, so we're offering our customers ways to engage their customers at length. And via the platform and the interactive tools that we offer our customers, creates a wealth of data which gives our customers the insights that they need to qualify their leads and drive pipeline for their business. That's my 20 seconds up, probably.
All right, so why don't we hand it over to Marcus?
Okay, thank you. So, Rombi, we're a business who, in short, helps IT companies, so IT marketers like yourselves, to reach and engage with IT buyers. So most of the programs we run encompass three things. There's three key parts to our business. One is digital advertising, where we have a proprietary technology that we use to target very precise audiences. One is demand gen, where we do a lot of lead generation, and that can be offline, traditional telemarketing or online. And then the third is kind of content digital. So we build a lot of hubs and do a lot of other content activities around that. And probably for the last 18 months, we've focused a great deal on pulling all of those together to build ABM programs. So integrated programs where you can target. The smallest program we've got running probably at the moment is 5 companies. And the largest, we just received a list on Friday, is 296,000 companies across Asia. So I'm not really sure that actually counts as an ABM program, but it's tagged as one inside the business. So there's a full spectrum, and we really apply all of those different things, either it's digital advertising or it's demand gen, or we're creating content, and it's built around the end goal of engaging a specific set of companies or a specific market.
Sam?
Hey everyone. HubSpot focuses on inbound marketing and sales software and consulting to help businesses drive more traffic, generate more inbound lead conversions, and go through the full automation process. We're traditionally more in the small business and mid-market segment, but over the past 10 years, we've scaled quite a bit into the corporate and enterprise space, and recently invested in a company called Terminus, which does ABM, hence the interest in today's session and speaking with all of you.
All right, great. And I think for the sake of time, we all know what Greg does and where he works, right? We heard from him a little bit earlier.
I think I can also add some context, John.
Remember, you have 20 seconds.
Well, in the session I mentioned earlier, I thought the most important part of everything was the engagement of the audience. So we talked a lot about data today, and this is really the final session on how to activate that data. And I think everybody up on the panel, why we worked with a lot of our partners here to assemble this, can do it in various ways, and we can't do it independently of each other. I think I was having a conversation with somebody earlier. A few years ago, none of us would be on the same stage because we're all trying to bring to you different solutions and fight for that budget. But I think we're realizing that if we work together and help you guys understand how we can all make each other better, you'll be more successful. So that's why we've basically band this together.
Yeah, really good point. Okay, thanks, Greg. Let's take this piece by piece, and I want to start out with Tim, because I think one of the things we've heard today is the value of content and creating content and marketing content so that you can really effectively understand what your addressable market looks like and then start influencing those prospects. So Tim, as a content creator, a content creation partner, give us a sense of what you see as the most effective strategy for embarking on developing content that's going to reach the various constituencies that we heard Serious Decisions talk about, and then also people who happen to be in different stages of that buy cycle.
Yeah, the advice that we give to our customers when, and I'm going to tie this back to webinars specifically because that's the game that we're in, is to, when they're developing their webinar strategies and the content that goes along with it, are they actually thinking about producing that content at all stages of the buying cycle? So from top right through to the bottom, do they have enough coverage across that funnel? And some of the best customers today are doing that really effectively. So they've got their thought leadership content that's filling that top of the funnel. They've got their social proof through their customer stories and their case studies and interviewing panels. And also they're effectively demonstrating the product. So if you're in the tech space and you have products to demonstrate, they've got ways that they are effectively showcasing the product in a way that's going to ultimately lead to a conversion. So when thinking about content, it's about having a sense of coverage across all stages of the buying funnel, but also finding ways to help buyers, and particularly B2B buyers, self-educate and leave those breadcrumbs so that they can consume that content and continue to self-educate. I think there was a study maybe by Forrester a few years ago that was talking about how B2B buyers are now self-educating at a much higher rate these years, and with that, it's marketing's responsibility to own much more of that marketing funnel if they're engaging with a sales rep much further down the funnel.
So sticking with that theme, Tim, the old Field of Dreams quote, I think, is, if you build it, they will come. But we know with content, just because you create it doesn't mean people are going to consume it. How valuable have you seen intent data being as, a way to determine who to expose your content to? And specifically, if you guys are hosting webinars, are you utilizing some of this data to be able to help everybody in the room invite the appropriate person to view that webinar?
Yeah. Intent data is always going to give you a great foundation for your audience in terms of who you're going to carve out of your database and who to invite. If you're getting people who are at the right stage of the buying cycle that is appropriate for that content, it's always going to be a much more effective webinar program. You're going to see much higher attendance rates, much higher engagement rates. And for us, being in the game of engagement, the longer you can engage an audience and generate that data, the more intelligence that you have around those leads, which is ultimately going to help your sales team to have those conversations and relevant, meaningful conversations with those leads.
Final point on content creation and really bridging the gap over to nurture, and then we'll go over to Sam. I'm just wondering what advice you have for folks for doing nurture when someone is actually consuming content, meaning I have their attention right now. What tricks can I employ to make sure that they're, I'm maximizing their time and exposing them to the breadth of content that I've created?
Yeah, it's all about that continuing of that conversation. So if I bring it back to webinars again, it's a great vehicle to be able to continue that conversation and serve up and cross promote different content during that experience. Some of our best customers are using the platform to drive people to future webinars or on-demand webinars or white papers or guides or customers' case studies during that webinar experience. So it's not just about the drive-by marketing campaigns, which are done and dusted, short-lived. It's about how do you continue to feed them with the content during that experience whilst they're engaged and serving them appropriate content that's right for their buying cycle. And I'd say the marketers that are doing that are seeing the higher conversion rates off the back of their webinar programs.
All right, if you would be kind enough to pass the mic over to Sam, I just want to continue this discussion around nurture. Sam, today we heard a lot about first-party data, but also second and third-party data. And as someone who runs automation systems, I'm wondering what advice you have for the folks in the room who might want to leverage some of that second and third-party data to help with lead scoring.
Yes, certainly. So from a lead scoring perspective, the way that we see customers apply our own model and others best is when they look at it from a predictive sense. So rather than saying we think that this page view is highly correlated with purchases, actually letting some analytics run that are pretty full scope, covering engagement on your website, with your emails, what sources are they coming from to your website in the first place, what sort of content are they consuming, and then after, let's say, a month or a couple months, if you have enough contacts that are being analyzed, you can then say, okay, this should add points, this should take away points, rather than guessing at a model. That's where we've seen the most success. And I know some local kind of customers where we've seen really good success with that is like First National Real Estate in the Aussie market and Australian Institute of Fitness. Lead scoring just really helps to prioritize for your sales team who should they be following up with and also re-engaging with if something's gone dead a while back. Things can change pretty quickly.
Sam, any advice on leveraging the behavior signals that we're now able to detect to effectively determine what to send people? I know what they've done in the past. Now, how can I leverage that to power automation more effectively? Any either quantifiable metrics that you guys have collected, or maybe just some real world examples, if you will, of companies that are doing this really well?
Yeah, certainly. So a minute ago, Tim was saying, more and more of that buying process is being done ahead of speaking with the salesperson in the first place. From our data, it looks like between 60 and 80% of the decision is likely to have been made before a prospect actually speaks with a vendor. So knowing that, I think it's really important that the marketing team has access to a platform where they're able to create on a regular basis, almost daily, segments within segments. So we've got hundreds, thousands of smart lists built within our own database that actually identifies, okay, if someone is X, Y, but not Z, add or take them out of these lists. And these are living, breathing, dynamic things that not only impact email communication, which I feel marketing automation often is pigeonholed into this idea of marketing automation, but it's also, these lists are then going to apply for website content. What are we showing you as far as calls to action? When you hit a form, what questions are we asking you or not asking? How are you being remarketed to on other platforms, whether it's social media or other ad networks? So that's all really important, and the data is there. It's there. I think for a lot of larger brands as well, they might be tied by headquarters that have some platform that they don't have full access to, and that's where we've seen really good success in this market, helping to run smaller pilots with someone like a Randstad or a Fuji Xerox printers that actually want to take more control and have that autonomy without needing to wait on IT or headquarters, wherever that might be.
Hey, Greg, I'm going to ask you to chime in on this as well, because I think TechTarget has always prided itself on understanding our audience's behavior and targeting vendor and editorial promotions based on that behavior. What kind of uplift do we see in terms of being able to do that at the topical and then subtopical level?
Yeah, so when John talks about the topical and subtopical, so topical being security, for example. So we have a whole suite of sites that are targeted towards security buyers, but as we know that goes into a bunch of subtopics: identity and access management, endpoint protection, advanced threats, cloud security, a number of different things that go in there. So when we target just generally at the topical level, we see anywhere from a 0.22 to a 0.27 increase from just sending it out to the broader audience. When we go down to the subtopical level, I think it goes up to 0.3 or 0.5, but it's a 10x increase that we see in terms of responses that we're getting from the same people that we'd be sending just, hey, check out the security information. But if we see that you've recently been on Search Cloud Security and we start sending you some things about key considerations when migrating applications to the cloud in terms of security, we're seeing a 10x increase in that response rate. And what that means for you is your metrics look great on the front ends, but we're all measuring things in the back end. So what that means is you've got more opportunities to have conversations, you've got more opportunities for your reps to get in and have meetings, and ideally more opportunities to be making the shortlist, just with that simple tweak of looking at what does this existing history mean. Don't just look at it from the scope of security or storage. Really try to refine that, and those are some things that we can help you model both your outreach with in terms of what you're saying, but also we can help you model that in terms of who's interested in all these subtopics as well. So working with Sam to then take that and then activate that through a different automation.
So Marcus, I'm going to turn to you, and coming off the heels of just hearing a bunch of CIOs say, don't call me, I never pick up the phone, I have an effective system at screening out calls, you guys run a call center.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, is data opening the door to more effective conversations? If you show someone them, are they more willing to tell you more about what's going on within their organization? And how specifically is Rombi using data to do just that?
So I guess on that side of the business, trying to think that you've asked a few questions there. So, okay, the use of intent data does have a definite impact on the success that we see. So I'll give you a couple of practical examples. We work with some clients where they provide us with their install base data. So we know what customers have previously bought. We know where their relationship's at. So when we go into any conversation or when we're trying to reach a CIO, it doesn't feel like a cold call, like the guy said today, because we've got some context of the discussion. We know if they're a customer, if they're a prospect, what they bought. So immediately that conversation becomes more meaningful. And that's at a simple level. It's not really necessarily intent. That's about being intelligent with the data that you've already got inside the business. At the other end of the scale, it could be that we work with a fine publisher, like a Tech Target or somebody, to produce data that's useful. Where we're talking about, is there intent? Are they like researching white papers? And then we're trying to speak to those contacts around what activities are going on in the business. But one of the big pieces that we do really is where we're driving digital campaigns, and we're looking for signals of intent there where they're consuming content or messaging, and they may not fill out a form, right? They don't want to answer 17 fields in a HubSpot campaign. And if they haven't been there before, then you don't have the context to progressively profile them. So one of the things we do then is try to identify the organization. So we do that through IP tracking. We then will talk to that organization, the context that we know within it, and look at the previous intent that we know about that business. And what that does, to answer your kind of final bit around how does that change the way that the callers call into those organizations, is we have callers who, not like a traditional telemarketing business where they just have a list and they just phone people up. They become very much like account handlers. So they might focus on banking, and they know what's going on in all of those banks. They've spoken to a lot of the infrastructure managers. They've spoken to the CIO. They have a good handle on it. And they may be working on an infrastructure project right now, but they'll also dig in and find out around security. And we capture a lot of that stuff, and we capture it at the organizational level. So then if we're running a digital campaign and we see, hey, look, somebody from ANZ has engaged with this content, but he didn't fill out the forms, then we take that information and furnish the telecenter with the ability to call into that with some context. So, whichever level it is, we're trying to use intent data to kind of drive that conversation, because the world has moved on from somebody providing a list and you just calling into it.
Yep. So we have a lot of folks in the room here who certainly work with BDRs, some of whom may manage BDRs. What advice do you have for our attendees today in terms of how they should train and effectively expose their BDRs to the proper usage of data in a cold call?
Well, I mean, that's a big challenge, I think, for probably most of the people here at differing levels, because we have some very close integrations with a lot of tech publishers, a lot of tech companies. And one of the interesting things you see is some of the stuff that sales get up to with the leads. And we've seen all sorts of things, from an extreme end, an email to a potential lead which says, hey, I don't know why marketing gave me these details, but I think you want to buy something. Can you call me back? And it literally said that in an email. And it just accidentally got forwarded through to us as part of feedback. But it actually happens. That is real. And so there's all sorts of things where sales take the information that they're provided, they take the leads, and they assume that it's a sale, right? Or it's as close to a sale as it's going to be. And a lot of our guys used to joke, it must, being a tech sales guy has got to be the easiest job in the world, because all they're prepared to do is go and close business. And I don't think that's necessarily true, but there is an expectation that needs to be built around how do you understand the information you're given in a lead? What is the context to it? And still treating it like a discovery opportunity. If my sales guys were going to come and meet with any of you, it doesn't matter how much we know about you and how much business we've done with you in the past. That meeting is a discovery opportunity. That call is a discovery opportunity to try and understand what's important to you. And I think that's lost in some of the tech selling. It becomes product. It becomes very benefit selling, rather than really understanding you've just interrupted somebody's day and you need to show some value early up. So I guess that's overall what I'd say.
So, Greg, I want to give you the last word for the sake of time. I don't want to stand between the hungry crowd and lunch. So I'm going to ask you to wrap things up by maybe talking a bit about some of the ROI you've seen. We had Greg Wood share some of the ROI on his priority engine investment with Tech Target. Give me a sense of the customers you're talking to, what they're experiencing, and a good way for the folks in the audience here to set a barometer, if you will, on their investments.
Yeah, I think everybody in here's job is tasked with delivering ROI. So I'll almost answer it in a different way, where it's the customers that are seeing the most return on investment are the ones that are able to set the best expectations internally. So you heard Greg Wood talk about a new contact coming in can take upwards of 3 months just to turn into somebody that's interested in speaking with them. So where most of our customers, I'd say all of our customers would fall down, is when a campaign is executed in a short amount of time and there's expectations from them or their sales team that they're going to get immediate pipeline out of that. And if that's the expectation that you have, that your sales reps have, that your leaders that are setting these KPIs have, you're never going to be successful. You're never going to be able to show return on that investment. So return is a subjective word. Is return net new contacts into a database? Is return number of meetings that are set? Is return pipeline? And certainly in return is always going to be closed won. So where people have the most return is when the expectations are set and that word is defined a little bit better. So what we try to do, and I think everybody on the stage does the same thing, is try to enable marketers to set expectations with sales, and then try to enable marketers to set expectations with whoever is setting those KPIs. Because I think everybody in this room agrees that everything we talked about today is valid. We're preaching to the converted that we need to use data, that we need to be in front of organizations, that we need to be having more educated conversations. But you're still going to go back to your jobs and have KPIs that you need to manage against, that you don't have control over who set it, and sales reps that have certain expectations that are set because of those KPIs. So, what we can do is try to set expectations as to what you can get, and coming out with case studies like things from SaaS, I think, is really helpful. So I would say, going on a little tangent here, one thing that we can help you with is to try to help you figure out what that term return should really mean, and to help you set those expectations into future planning cycles. I know a lot of people are planning for 2018, so look us up on that. We can give you some proper expectations on investment for net new contacts, for engagements, for meetings and conversations, and talk to you about who's doing it well. And to the CIOs is a good example. We can introduce you to some of your peers who are sitting in this room that are doing that as well. So I think from a return perspective, the people that are seeing the best return are the ones that are defining that accurately. It's not necessarily about just who's getting the most conversions and getting the most pipeline.
And I think that's a really good point to end on. I want to thank our panelists, really good insights from all of them. And again, I think Greg set the stage really nicely when he said, there was a time when we probably all would have been vying for the same budget that you guys hold, and there's a different day that has dawned, and now we're all working together to try to help you be more successful. So big thank you to On24, to Romby, to HubSpot, and of course to Greg from TechTarget.